As we first reported yesterday, Michigan's third grade reading scores are at their lowest point in the last 10 years.
According to test results from the State Department of Education, proficiency rates in English language arts dropped from 40.9% in 2023 to 39.6% in 2024. That means more than 60% of Michigan's third graders failed the reading tests last year. Here to discuss it is Detroit School Board member Sherry Gay Danyogo. Sherry, thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me on.
So let's talk about what's causing this. Of course, it's not that the third graders last year were any less bright than any other year, any other generation, but the state is pointing to poverty and remote learning. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, remote learning has gone by the wayside for the most part over the last couple of years. Why is it that that's still having such an impact?
You know, studies show that when we have students who lose to our gap during the summer, and you got to think about the impact of COVID, that when they lose that time, it takes almost 2 to 3 years in some instances to catch students up. And so that's why we want to make sure that we don't allow those gaps to exist. We saw what happened during COVID to no fault of our own. Many of our schools struggled with students who had to learn by no other platform than a virtual platform. That is not the optimal platform for our children to learn. They're in school now every day. We're just starting school back off again. And so having them in class, having that additional support to remediate the challenges that many of our students have found with reading, and not just reading. A lot of people sometimes get the confusion in saying the children can't read. The assessment with the M-STEP is not just showing a child's ability to read or decode words. It's their ability to comprehend and understand context, understand how those words fit together, to make a story. And so that's what's important, to understand the difference between that.
Yeah, Sherry, there were a lot of districts really across the country that experienced that lag because of COVID. And we know that each grade level builds off of the next. So how do you start the process of trying to catch up?
I'm just grateful that, one of certainly no one is celebrating the fact that we had COVID. But as a result of us having COVID, we have a lot more funds now that allowed us to hire more academic interventionists at Detroit Public Schools. And like you said, this is not just a DPS issue. This is a countrywide, a national problem. But we've hired more academic interventionists, and they're using programs like Orton Gilliam to allow our students to get that support 45 to 50 minutes a day, supporting them, having them, giving them instructions on phonemic awareness, understanding how to decode words, and having that support. But we're going to have to do more as a community, because many of our adults, many of our parents, grandparents who are raising the second generation of children, some of them also have literacy challenges. And we know that the building blocks of education and literacy begins at that 0 to 3. If we get more people who are reading at home, families who are reading with their children, that's what it's going to have to take to have a campaign that deals with changing the culture of how we address and approach literacy. It's going to start at home with the support of the community, maybe in our churches, in our places of faith, after school programs. But we have been able to hire more staff and retain more staff with higher salaries to be able to support our students who are having these reading and academic challenges.
And Sherry, we are very short on time, but you mentioned funding. Can you tell us where we are? Can you bring us up to speed in Detroit Public Schools with the settlement money from the 2016 lawsuit? I know it was received more recently. Where are we on those programs after all of the community engagement? How is that going to be spent, and how soon do you think we'll see a result from that?
We're starting to see some results from that right now. We have community programs, that $94 million that was passed. We're starting to see programming again, allowing us to bring in more academic interventionists, allowing us to adopt programs that are led by community members called Let's Read. We're seeing that implementation right now. We're actually meeting again next week to discuss some more of this during a special meeting for the Detroit School Board. But you're starting to see that implementation right now.
All right, we will continue to follow that. Detroit School Board member Sherry Gay Danyogo, thanks as always for being here.